Of an IT professional. What are they? Well, some people have different opinions on this. And before I finish this video or even start this video, this is something of a tongue in cheek joke. I have to make sure to put that there because when I tell you what the virtues are, you're going to be like, that's not a virtue. That's a vice. Why would you encourage people to do that? And I have to say that because I mentioned one of them and got kind of canceled by a group of people who thought that, in fact, it caused them to make videos about why they should not follow me as a mentor. I'm not even kidding. So, no drama. What are the virtues? The first virtue, and by the way, let's just go out into the internet, my friends. I mean, when has a live stream search of the internet ever been a bad thing? What are the virtues of IT professional? God, look at all my stuff. Okay. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's so happy. Integrity, honesty, courage, and good judgment. Yeah, no. Those definitely are the virtues, but I want you to understand some of the other virtues. I didn't even did I spell it. Did I spell it right? Virtues. Virtues. I'm gonna seed this a little bit. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The virtue of hubris. The three great virtues of programmers. Okay. This is what I was actually looking for, and you will probably hear about this on the internets. The virtue circuit sort of don't be a dick. Yeah, that is kind of one of them. This video is more about the personality type that goes along with being this, and I am going to talk a little bit in this video about. I'm going to tell a couple stories of when it has happened and when it hasn't happened. My personal experience with this. But there's a lot of commentary about it. Programs that do have these virtues, I mean, if you go all the way back, this is the original post, and it was made by Larry Wall from Programming Perl a long time ago. If you don't know who Larry Wall is one of the most amazing uh, technologists who have ever lived. Created Perl, and if you didn't live through the '90s, you don't know how big a deal Larry Wall was. Randall Schwartz, I actually used to hang with him a little bit in Oregon. Wrote Learning Perl. Yeah, I actually went to a karaoke bar with him once. And so Larry Wall is the originator of the three. I'm going to zoom in on this because this is a very, very old webpage. And we're going to read about these qualities, and we're going to read Larry Wall's definition of these. And before you say, why do I care what the creator of Perl thinks about everything? This guy created the most significant programming language probably of the entire, I would say probably all the entire 90s decade, if not 90s probably, and to this day. I mean, I work for a very huge multinational, and there's over 80,000 lines of Perl code doing all kinds of stuff. I wrote several thousands of lines of code that's managing, to this day, probably about 52,000 machines for audit compliance in Perl. A lot of the hackers out there wrote in Perl. So don't discount what Larry Wall has to say just because he was the creator of Perl and you think Perl is a language you shouldn't care about because somebody on the internet told you Perl sucked. There's a video about that, by the way. Go read that or watch that or whatever. So let's actually hear what he had to say about the virtues of a good programmer. And of course, if you know Larry, you know that most of this is tongue in cheek from the very beginning. The first one is laziness. The quality that makes you go to great effort to reduce overall energy expenditure. It makes you write labor-saving programs that other people will find useful and document what you wrote so that you don't have to answer so many questions about it. Hence, the first great virtue of a programmer, and I would say, a technologist, is laziness. Let's talk about lazy for a second. I love being lazy. Being lazy means that I make things that I don't have to do them over again. right? And let me give you an example. How many times have I redone the boost every year? Right? I'm redoing the same stuff because most of the content's changed, but some of the content hasn't changed. And why am I redoing it? I'm too lazy for that. So I'm going to make a whole bunch of little videos and then I just have to replace the video that got changed from last year. That's the lazy way to do it, right? The lazy way is to only fix the things that need to be fixed. And you don't want to be changing stuff all the time, right? So there are many, many times where the laziest way is also the most efficient and it's just easier. And so that's why that is a virtue. Does that mean that you do the least amount of work possible? Maybe. You just can't pull a Scotty, by the way. Don't pull a Scotty. Don't pull a Scotty. What do I mean by that? That should be a thing. This goes in laziness. Scotty was never lazy. Scotty just always wanted more credits. He said, "Oh, it can't be done, Captain. No, no, no. We're all going to die. There's no way I can do that in time." And then he would do it anyway. My favorite line, by the way, my favorite line from any Star Trek, actually there's two, but this is probably the second most favorite. I'll tell you the first in another video. So one of my favorite lines ever written by a newer generation Star Trek writer was in Voyager when B'Elanna Torres, who's this really, really badass, half Klingon, half human engineer. She's my favorite character in the entire Star Trek series. She's absolutely amazing. And she gets asked, by another engineer, no, somebody asked her how long it's going to, this is related to laziness. Someone asked her, well, how long do you think it's going to take? She goes, well, let's see, it's going to do blah, blah, blah. She does a little thing in her head. She goes, I would say probably 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days, given the amount of work that we have to do. And then the other person is like an engineer or something. And he says, wait a second, aren't you going to like pad your estimate so that you look better when you pull it out, in under that time? And she looks straight at him and she says, no, that would be irresponsible. It's basically the Voyager's writers like totally taking a shot at the original Star Trek writers of Scotty. Because B'Elanna Torres pulling a Scotty is completely against her ethos. The idea that you would lie about your estimate just to make yourself look better, and it's so that they think, oh, he said you couldn't do it. Oh my God, you did it anyway. Yeah, I tried. I dug down deep and I did it. And the whole time you knew that you could do it in a shorter amount of time. That would be dishonest. So don't do that. That's kind of related to the laziness thing. Dishonesty is not one of these virtues. That's the PM, the project manager. Yeah, let them lie about it. Impatience, the anger you feel when the computer is being lazy. This makes you write programs that don't just react to your needs, but actually anticipate your needs, or at least pretend to. Hence, the second grade virtue of a programmer is impatience. Yeah. We don't like waiting around for things, do we? We really don't. Programmers don't like laying around. Engineers don't like waiting around. Like, oh, I'm just going to make that thing. In fact, one of the best things, I say this all the time, one of the best reasons to learn to code is you don't have to wait to talk to somebody who knows how to do it. I have a story about that. So there's this guy, my ex-brother-in-law, who had ideas about everything. He was always coming at me with the latest idea of what would be a cool site or what would be a great idea for a startup. But he was always trying to get me to make it. It's like, why aren't you making this? One time I told him, I said, why don't you learn to code and make it yourself? Shut him right up. Totally shut him up. Totally shut him up. Because he was like, oh, yeah. But if you're impatient, then you can make it yourself. Yeah. Even if you don't want to become, look, I've told people all day today and many other days, I actually don't like to code. I like what I get from the coding. Money and apps I want, programs I want. So I'm impatient and I'm lazy and I want to make things that make me, save my time so I can go get on my bike, or that keep me And I'm impatient. I want to learn to code because I want to make a thing. Another thing about impatience is, let's say you want to you end up making reusable code because if you do the code right, even though it takes a little longer, the next time you want to do the same thing, oh, I don't know, like parse YAML properly, then you can go back and do it because in impatient, you just go reuse the thing you already made, right? So impatience is another virtue. Um, and then the last one is hubris, and this is the one that nearly got me canceled. Actually, there's a video out there. You can go read it. You can go see it, watch it. You can't read a video, Rob. You can go watch it, and you can go see what they say. But I suggested, and this is what I was referring to. This is not me saying this. This is Larry Wall saying. I am not saying you should have hubris. Larry Wall is saying it. Cancel Larry Wall. Oh wait, everybody already did. He's also, I hope he's still alive. He's been struggling with health problems. Please, don't be a dick. Excessive pride, the sort of thing Zeus zaps you for. Also, the quality that makes you write and maintain programs that other people won't want to say bad things about. Hence, the third great virtue of a programmer is hubris. So, I mean, I don't think it's any newsflash to tell you that if you look up the Webster or whatever dictionary definition of these words, hubris is not a good word. It has nothing but pejorative meaning. And that's not, by the way, if you change the P to a B, it would be Bajor, and it's another Star Trek reference. Pejorative. Yeah. Anyway. Excessive pride. Excessive pride. Be proud of what you make. Be German about it. So have people who have hubris are less likely, even though they have impatience and laziness, they're less likely to put shit out, right? They're more likely to take time, not unnecessary time, but to put something that is actually good, right? To not just hack something, but to make something that has high quality. So hubris is a fun way to say you actually care about the quality of the thing you're making, and I have a story about that. Yeah. So this is kind of a sad story. I was reporting quality issues and bugs in software for almost a month. And I was on a call right before our delivery date. Yep, don't just ship it. This is what this is about. I was on a call right before we shipped a very big project. And it was a conference call, and I was with my manager. I'm not going to tell you much more about the manager, except for I absolutely hated him. One of the worst managers I've ever had no ability to relate to us, had no technical acumen at all. And I was stuck working for this guy because I got bought out inside the company. Anyway, and I said, this code doesn't work. He said, oh no, he got to the end of the meeting, but ready to launch. And they said, okay, this is the last time we're going to open the floor up. Does anybody have anything to bring up before we launch? And I said, well, it doesn't work like I mentioned in that email. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I sent the email and I talked to you, and it's like, why do you have to boil the water right now? You're always boiling the water at the end. I'm like, well, you asked us to tell you. And I'm obviously paraphrasing, but he let me have it. This was a call with about 18 people on it. And most of the people I cared about that I worked with day to day knew it was a problem. I had been telling them about it as a problem. And I, and we thought, what are we going to do? And they're like, well, looks like they're going to ship it anyway. And I said, okay, it's not. We can't ship it. But I said, I've done everything I can. I've escalated it in every possible way. And so I could not get through that meeting with good conscience without saying it doesn't work. And Mr. Robot, they actually have a similar story where it's fictional, but Elliot was the pen tester, and he kept finding crap wrong. And they got annoyed because they wanted to go to their party, so they locked him in the refrigerator or something. Because he kept finding problems. And they're like, stop finding problems. So I found this problem, and they said, well, you did. I said, I already did tell you, man. And they said, don't boil the water. And ever since then, my wife, she knows this story inside and out. And, she calls me all the time as a joke. She goes, yeah, it's because you're a water boiler. A water boiler is not somebody who, brings out critical flaws in software before they get released into production. A water boiler is somebody who just wants to hear themselves complain. And I am sometimes that guy. So I will own that. I will own that. And is it because of my excessive pride? Hubris? I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm obsessed with not releasing stuff that's going to destroy the world. And believe me, the software that I have seen, I was talking to Dennis Last Miles the other day about this because he's working on the floating point error that is core to all kinds of stuff. And we joke about planes falling out of the sky and trains colliding because that's the level of bug that he's working on. And if it weren't for Dennis's hubris, quite possibly people could die. If it weren't for if the people who put the spaghetti code, that is according to a NASA engineer who under oath testified that the problem for the Toyota Camry accelerators locking was because there was too much code. People had just gone in there and made incremental changes. He called it cruft and he called it spaghetti code. So the official cause of death for many people who were suing in the Toyota Camry versus whatever class action lawsuit was spaghetti code. And that spaghetti code came about because people were doing the minimum necessary to get that assembly code firmware to work, and they had disabled the safeties that were built into the software in the first place. I've talked about that story a million times, but I tell you what, an engineer who has hubris would never, ever have allowed that code to make it to that level. An engineer punching the clock and doing a day-to-day grind, spaghetti code kills. Hubris saves lives, my friend. Hubris saves lives. I'm not going to, if you want to know about the lawsuit, I'll talk about it more offline. But if you don't, it's the Toyota Camry lawsuit where the accelerator pedal's stuck. That's the lawsuit. And we actually found this once as a group, and we found the actual code. We want to make merch that has the code on the back, and on the front it says spaghetti code kills. I think that would be some fun merch. I would love to write. Talk about deadly software that makes your accelerator pedal stick. Yeah, not a good thing if you're in the automotive industry. So anyway, hubris, that's what this is about. Hubris is a good thing. Hubris means that you care about something and stuff. And that's the end of this video.